Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming to our committee meetings. Today, we are going to start with the Student Services Committee. We're looking at the agenda. We are first going to start with public comment. We do have one public comment that says for opening. That was Miss Laura Foster.
Thanks for letting it be like opening comment for just like in general. I don't know whose laptop this is.
I don't have a
Okay.
3 minutes. I just so you know, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
I'll put this up when you have 1 more minute.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
All right, so Laura, East Rock Hill, this is around the curriculum committee. Bradley, for the millionth time, can you please get rid of the Vermillion stuff out of RELA? I want to rewind back to August 2023, before your campaign. Remember the rallies that you came to? Remember the petition that you signed on to get rid of Vermillion? Remember the opt-out form that you all championed? This is what you ran on. Every single one of the flyers that Kevin put out had this statement on there, the fox is in the hen house. Do you remember where that came from? It's Jordan Adams, Moms for Liberty Conference, Children First. Guess who got that information? All of this stuff is what you ran on, was to get rid of Vermillion. And here we are 2 years later and still dealing with everything that happened with Vermillion still has not changed in RELA. And even though we'd like to talk about there being like the past is the past and it doesn't impact the future or today, it does. So I have a child in 7th grade and I went to back to school night and his ELA class has book list. You know what was missing? Tears from a Tiger. This was taken out by Vermillion. This is completely Jordan Adams taking this out to whitewash our RELA curriculum so that we don't have to talk about things like depression and suicide and to remove SEL. It was never brought back in. There's a whole list of books that have never been brought back in that were taken out by Vermillion. So one of the things that is important in trying to like understand this is that now my child and their cohorts aren't able to engage in meaningful dialogue about depression, suicide. So the book that was replaced was a book about football and CTE. I appreciate the school's like initiatives to try to address mental health. Ironically, the mental health presentation is on football or athletics and CTE. I'm a little bit confused on how this really addresses mental health. One of the things that we know is that presentations like that are for the parents, not for the students. But one of the things we do know is that SEL does help. There's research all over the place. Not only does it help for the children's mental health, it reduces suicide attempts by up to 35% a year following. So this is why this matters. This isn't something of the past. This isn't something we need to like brush over. This is something that is happening today. At back to school night, I asked all of the teachers that were in the ELA what they thought about the removal of Tears from a Tiger. Every single one of them said it was a good book. One said it was their favorite book and that they're disappointed that it's still not back in the curriculum. They said when kids get upset about it, they fold in the guidance counselors. They had a whole program to address this. You know why this is so important. My son is 13. Think about who was 12 last year. You know why this is important. You know why this works. Like mental health conferences to parents don't change mental health for children. This is the stuff that changes the mental health for children. So you remember the opt-out form,
Laura,
right?
We're up 3 minutes.
What's that?
3 minutes.
Oh, okay. Well, let me just scan this out then to y'all. Is Meg Burke here? Okay, well, Miss Burke. So this is the opt-out form for my child to be opted out of, and this is the curriculum that was pulled out. So this is now something that you have to address, Bradley, because I'm opting my child out of Vermillion curriculum. So please, if you don't know where this information is, here's part of it. And you can feel free to reach out to me if you forget what was opted out, because I have it all archived. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So we have one more public comment, but that's after the committee, so we'll just, perfect. So first on our agenda, like I said, we're doing student services first. Items up for discussion. The first will be the Erie water polo overnight trip. Is Miss Hanson here? Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
Hi, Miss Hanson. We will present this to us, right?
Yes.
Perfect. Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Miss Hanson by day, and I go by Coach Kate. in the early mornings, and then obviously I just finished practice. I just swimming. Okay. Well, I have some like high heels I have to change. I apologize. But yes, so I'm here to ask for permission for an overnight trip to an Erie crossover tournament that is October 10th and 11th this season. And this is a great opportunity for these student athletes because they will be participating against the Western Conference, teams that they normally would not be able to play up against on the East Coast. So I'm an Erieite. I'm originally from Erie, Pennsylvania, so this is exciting for me to get to actually play against my, former alumni, and also to show my student athletes that are attending. Hopefully, I haven't been there in 15 years, that my state winning picture's still up there and my All-American and all that kind of stuff. So that's exciting to actually prove to them what my home roots and everything, and what my upbringing came from. So, however, it'll be three of us current employees. So we have Coach Jenna, and then we have Coach Schwartz. My two assistant coaches will be attending the overnight trip, and the school policies will be implemented, and the safety will continue on as we are on the trip, and enforced. So. There any questions?
I guess the only question I have is with the cost, and then
Yes.
it looks like, the kids will be asked to, the kids that are invited will have $100 each, and then we just don't know what the district will be contributing to that? We just don't know that yet?
Correct. We don't. Because we need this permission first.
First, and
Yes.
then- okay.
And then the
So you will
follow through.
fundraise for everything first and then
Yes,
come
ma'am.
back to see, okay.
Yeah, Mr. Kenny, could you share our,
If you, I'm gonna hop in.
Okay. Mr. Kenny, yes.
The district is going to commit to the transportation costs to the equivalent of our transportation.
Okay.
But the actual trip is partially funded by the booster programs.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. We're gonna take a charter bus.
All
Yep.
right, nice.
With water polo, and we've spoken about this collectively as a group, water polo in this area isn't as popular. So it's an excellent opportunity and unique challenge for our students here to be consistently be able to compete in that. In the western part of the state, it is much more prevalent. So this tournament is something that our team has participated in historically. And it was, I think you had said 20, 21, 20.
And 23. Yep.
And it was 20 through 23 they went. There was a hiatus last year just because of the flux in the program. But this is a valuable opportunity for our students to compete across the state for that reason. You just happen.
It happens to be my
It
hometown.
happens to be our-
Yeah. So.
I think it's important to realize this is something that historically is done, and for our kids to be as competitive as possible, it's important to take them into those more water polo rich areas because it helps us be more competitive across the state.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any questions? More questions? All right, perfect, wonderful. Thank you so much, Ms. Hanson.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Next up will be Mr. Johnson. He's going to talk about our Strength Over Stigma event that's coming up.
So you've all heard about this event before, and I just wanted to, as the flyer shows, correct some information that you just heard. This event is not merely for student athletes. It's also not merely for parents, guardians, community members, and staff. The focus of this event is really about students and parents and trying to shape a narrative for those parents so that they understand how to deal with or address mental illness among their children, among community members, neighbors, family members. The focal point of this event will begin with a presentation by Nick Amy, who was just promoted in Nominee Bucks County as the Associate Executive Director, and Keely Rosenthal, who was also just promoted within her position. So two people who were just promoted within their respective areas, Keely Rosenthal being now identified as a mental health delegate, so I will update that flyer. I just got that news last week during a planning meeting. That particular presentation, again, will focus on mental illness and mental strength for life. That's the opening part of the presentation. Part 2 and 3, which everyone will also get a chance to see, is we are fortunate to be partnering with Nova and a police detective from the Hilltown Police Department, and they're going to talk about what's called an iSmart program. Those two presentations following Ms. Rosenthal and Mr. Amy will be about 30 to 40 minutes in length with time for Q&A. And the program peak performance within student athletes, for student athletes, we're going to be helped to promote that event by our athletic director. So we're very excited about this opportunity for a wide section of our student population, as well as parents, guardians, community members. You know someone that's going to the water polo tournament, tell them as well. This is going to be a great event. It's an exciting event. Tuesday, September 30th. We're going to continue to push it out through social media. I would like to thank Dave Thomas for his efforts when pushing that out, and also Nick and Keely will also be pushing it out through their social media platforms. Fun fact, Nick Amy has 60,000 followers. So we'll see if he can get 60,000 people here. Maybe we'll move it to the stadium. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Any
Johnson.
questions about the September 30th event?
Will it be recorded? Or is this something that people will be able to see later on, not live, or,
I would love for it to be recorded. We're going to make that happen.
that'd be great. I went
you.
because I unfortunately, I won't be able to attend. I want to. I went to the last one that you had, and I thought it was phenomenal. But I can't make this one, so definitely if it could be recorded, I think that would be great.
I think the only answer to that would be we have to check with the presenters whether their presentation's trademarked. That's the only thing, is if we broadcast it, if they get permission, then yes.
Okay, all right.
Thank you.
Thank you. No questions? All right, perfect. Thank you again, Mr. Johnson. All right, that is it. We have one more public comment. Mr. Dan Biebernitz.
That's after curriculum.
To end of the night.
Oh, then we do not have any more comments. And our next Student Services Committee meeting is scheduled for Monday, October 6th. Next, we will have the Policy Committee.
All right, for a policy committee meeting tonight, we're going to start with a policy update plan. This hasn't changed much since we met the last time. Again, right now we're focusing more on the policies and the PSBA updates to them. So I don't feel like there's any really new information in here. But as always, it's the opportunity for anyone to suggest something they'd like to see addressed also. Does anyone have any comments? Okay, moving on, we have a few second read policies. These had some just like minimal changes from what we saw the last time. So I don't know, Mr. Johnson, do you want to go through these?
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you.
So what I'm going to do, we did an exhaustive review of all of the different policies, so I am going to scroll through. You as board members received these policies last week. If you have a comment or a question about a particular policy as I scroll through, please stop me, and then we can use it as an opportunity for discussion. So again, I'm just going to scroll through.
Could you,
First policy.
could you point out that you said minor changes? Can you show us what those are? Because we were okay with the other ones.
So the only change that we looked at was policy, I'll pull it up, 351, drug and substance abuse. If we go to the end of the policy, that was shared with our solicitor. And his comment on this final note He stated that it was really inappropriate for this particular policy, and if you remember, he suggested that we consider it for policy 810.1, which is school bus drivers and school commercial motor vehicle drivers. Again, his recommendation that we remove the language here within this policy and embed it into 810.1. That was his one recommendation.
That's for the pre-employment drug testing?
Yes.
Why is it in there?
It was PSBA's recommendation,
are
but
we-
he suggested that we consider it for 810.1, put that as a part of the policy update plan, add that for a first read and a second read, and then he suggested some language for that policy that would go into 810.1 to update that information.
So are we taking it off this one?
Yes,
Okay.
that's the
The-
recommendation.
Okay.
The part after note.
Right.
There,
Yes,
that last,
yes.
just that last.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay.
And 810.1 is for bus drivers.
School bus drivers and school commercial motor vehicle drivers. Yes.
Okay, and this
Which makes
is for
sense.
all other employees.
Yes.
Well, this is for all employees too, but the drug testing element is just for the bus drivers.
Oh,
Yeah, the 810 focused solely on operations, and in that particular instance, it's focused on school bus drivers. And this focuses on all staff. So again, recommendation
they're the
is,
only employees that go through drug testing?
we do not,
Pre-employment drug
Yeah.
testing, yeah.
right? Which was a part of the conversation
Yeah.
we had at
last
the
time.
last meeting that, again, so I'm not sure why it was a recommendation from PSBA, but our solicitor has weighed in and suggested that we remove that.
So, out of curiosity, is that best practice with other districts, that only drivers go through pre-employment drug testing? That seems odd.
I know. It does seem odd, but like, even in some of the other districts I worked at, we didn't have it either. I don't know about you, Bradley, if your school district.
In all of the districts I've been involved with over the years, I've only encountered one.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of
I've never-
employers are dropping it unless you're operating heavy machinery.
Yeah,
I've never heard of it.
Really?
Not in the school.
I know, but you're right, when you think about it, you're like, what, I know.
Yeah.
It's not-
Right, I agree, because other jobs, I feel like you have to, yeah. Always
Well,
interesting too.
there
I
is a
realize it.
vast amount of screening people have to go in other than drug testing.
You're
So,
right, like your
you know,
clearances and everything.
people get clearances, they get a lot of other stuff.
Right,
Okay.
yeah. That's true.
So, Mr. Wers, to your question, that was the only policy, and I'm glad you mentioned that. This was the only policy where there was a change to be considered from our first reading. Everything else is as it is.
Okay.
Okay. Do we want to go back for the other ones and just flip through them, or like if we, or we don't have to if
Unless
everyone
anyone
is
has
okay
a
with
specific-
it.
I know, I mean,
I'm fine with that.
Yeah, based off what you read, are there any concerns? If not, I think we move on.
No, I didn't have any further comments.
We're good.
Oh, I like that.
You like it?
All right. That's it. Any public comment? Yeah.
Nope.
Again, just
Just
for the
that.
record, we will add policy 810.1, considering
Thank you.
Mike's recommendation to us.
Okay.
Thank you.
Next policy committee meeting is scheduled for Monday, October 6th.
All right. That brings us to curriculum, unless somebody needs a break. All right. So this is curriculum. We have nothing for before the curriculum meeting today. Which then brings us to curriculum office updates.
Great.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for having me tonight. Again, just because I am new, I'm going to reintroduce myself again to the community who may be listening. My name is Jennifer Bloom, and I am the Director of Teaching and Learning here at the Pembroke School District. I'm very grateful this evening to have all four of the teaching and learning supervisors with us as well, and they will come up in just a moment to share some updates from each of their departments. And now I will use the microphone. You're so very welcome. Apologies for the awkwardness at home. If you could have seen me, I sidestepped. Ladies and gentlemen, the first thing I want to share with you this evening is something I had promised you after our first time that we came together, which is a draft of a curriculum renewal cycle. And I'm going to click through this to give you kind of an update. I'm going to make it bigger because yikes. Okay, does that feel okay to everybody? Okay. So before I begin this, I am a firm believer in giving credit where credit is due. And I want to talk about first my experience previous to coming to the Penn Ridge School District. I had the opportunity to work alongside Dr. Amanda Benokin in the New Hope Solbury School District. And she championed the idea of a curriculum renewal cycle, and I saw such amazing value from this. As a principal in that district for 8 years. And I reached out to her to gain permission from her to be able to take a look at something that we had used in a previous district I worked in and bring it here and make it appropriate for Penn Ridge. And I have worked on this for quite a while, and I'm excited to bring it to you this evening. I want to share that it's a draft, and along with it being a draft, there are also some samples of how this could go. So I'm going to walk you through it. So that you get an idea as to my thought process. I will stop then to give you some opportunity to question or comment. And then supervisors, if you don't mind, as I ask for that, if there's any notes that you could take for me so I don't have to take notes and ask, I'd really appreciate it. So ladies and gentlemen, what I want to do first is explain to you the purpose of a curriculum cycle as I see it. So I want to be able to present to the board here and to our community at large the idea of a logical sequence of activities for revisiting, revising, and updating curricula. Because as we know in education, things change rapidly, and we want to make sure that we are changing and keeping up with best practices, but doing so in a fiscally responsible way. We don't want to jump at just every brand new trendy item or trend that comes along, because if we do so, we'll always be chasing our tail budgetary-wise to make sure that we are following along with the latest and best practices in education. So this cycle that I'm presenting to you tonight facilitates a K-12 perspective, and it allows us to limit large adoptions to specific years for each of the different core areas. And I'll get into that when we talk about year 3, which is our year of writing. This is a 5-step cycle that I'm proposing to you this evening. The first year of this step would be what we call the year of awareness. And this is the year where myself, the supervisor, the principals, and a committee that we would bring would come together to decide on the research that will go along with the best practices that are currently being out there on research-based in education. We would review our existing curricula. We would take a look at materials, vendor presentations, and potentially even go on some site visitations to say, what do we have, what is out there, and what do we need to continue to make Penn Ridge as competitive as it can and should be. So you'll see some steps there that I've listed for you. So that looks at the existing impact on where we are through student data. We know we are a metric-driven school board and a metric-driven school district. We want to make sure that we are showing you the proof through student outcomes and teacher efficacy. So in order to do that, we want to look to see what impact is our current curricula having on our student achievement. We want to come up with a needs assessment. What are the strengths of the curricula we're currently using in a certain area? What are its weaknesses? What opportunities do we have to continue to improve upon it? And what are the threats or barriers to those opportunities that we can continue to plan for as we move forward? We want to cross-reference the curriculum we have with other current best practices, updates, and standards. If you've been around in the last couple of years, you know that the Steele standards in science brought a brand new set of standards to us, as well as our health and PE. So we really want to make sure that we're creating a shared curricular vision. That would all occur during year 1 or step 1 in a year of awareness. At the second year, using the same subject area, so for example, if we were talking about RELA, in the second year, in the year of development, this is where we would review our findings of the research year. We would monitor this year to see how we would interact with student needs, best practices, and most importantly, the district's driving goal, which is our comprehensive plan. Everything should come back to the goals that we've created there as a district because we had so many stakeholders involved in that committee. This is where we would consider exploring pilot programs, potential curriculum proposals, and revisions and renewals, which I'll go over through in just a few moments. We would start to plan for staff development. We would take a look at our existing technology tools. What do we have? What do we need? We want to be very careful that we don't over-inundate any one department so that we have a whole lot of technology and not as much of a focus on teaching and learning. So we really want to do that in the year of development. The third year of the third year of that subject area's curriculum review, that's where some of your spending starts to happen. So in the third year, you would be in the year of writing. This is when we would come to you as the board to recommend a program to you that we would consider for adoption. It would also be where we recommend to you what the cost of that program would be, so you know about a year ahead of time what you would be funding to be able to put that into our budget for the following year. We would also begin our curriculum writing here into Atlas. We would be purchasing our new materials. If we cycle this out in a 5-year cycle, that means we should not have these huge, large purchases in every content area every single year. You can start to fiscally budget so that we can make sure that we are staying above the scary red line at the bottom, right? We want to stay in the black. In year 4, this is where the good stuff happens. This is where we turn it over to our experts, our teachers. This is where we have them in their year of implementation. We've done the research. We've picked the program. We've done the pilot. We've budgeted for it. Now we want it in our classrooms. And this is the year that they get the chance to be revising it, augmenting it, diversifying it, differentiating it, and making it accessible for our students. The final year would be our year of monitoring. Everything is fully implemented. We're looking at our data. We're seeing the impact of our choices over the last several years. What this would look like, ladies and gentlemen, as a sample and this is purely a sample. Community, if you are listening at home, this is a picture of a sample. It is not anything that has been decided. That work would be done this year. But what this would look like is if we were to, for example, choose that next school year, 26-27, we would put RELA, library, world language, and family consumer sciences in step 1. They would then be in their year of awareness. If you went down to step 3, for example, social studies, English language development, art, and music may be the subject areas we bring to you next year as a board to say, this is the year where we want to do our piloting, we want to recommend programs to you, we want to take a look at what our fiscal responsibility is going to be. And that is the end. No, I'm just kidding. I'm going to keep going. No, I'm just going to keep going. But I do, no, it's great. I feel great about it. So this gives you an idea as to what this could look like. I grayed out step 3, ladies and gentlemen, because this is where the money meets the road. These are the years that we would be looking for purchases in these areas. So we would try to get away from the days where we would say, you know what, RELA needs a brand new textbooks in 2nd grade because they're old and they're not great and we really want to do this. Oh, and also we kind of want in math, we need this new program where the teachers are kind of saying X, Y, or Z. We could kindly and calmly say, yes, we're here for that. We want the best for our students. Your year of that is in year 2. Let's do the research. Let's get to the site visits. Let's see what's out there so that we can bring this to you with a good background for you in step 3 to be able to research. Ladies and gentlemen, I would be a complete liar if I didn't say to you that every once in a while you're going to have the state come down and say to you, you have to do something now. We saw that with structured literacy. So we had balanced literacy, and then all of a sudden the state comes in and says, you need to have structured literacy done by 2026. So occasionally, as much as we try to plan for this, you're going to have something that we can't get rid of with the state. But it should be few and far between. This will give us an opportunity to plan thoughtfully, intentionally, fiscally, and with our students' best interests at heart. And again, there's just another example here with the focus years of being the years that we would actually be budgeting and asking for your support to implement a program that we've thoroughly vetted. So that's a lot of information. Let me take a moment before we go on. What questions do you have about this?
Comment. Every time we talk about curriculum, we kind of come across as first I want to say this is great. This is really spelled out. I love the, how the steps are aligned and then how it goes together. So this was really easy to follow.
Great, thank you.
So appreciate that.
Of course.
But when you were saying, to me, the meat and potatoes are the step 2 and step 3. And my heart always goes, even just with my profession and just my own kids, it's like, you know, it's so hard because there's little of us, you're having all these students, right? And then, you know, we have graduation requirements.
Yes.
And they have to have like 4 Englishes. And sometimes that always, for those that are going in that certain pathway, you know, great. But then my heart always hurts for those that, I'm like, man, if they love this, they would thrive in this, but we don't offer this, but we have to fall under the standards. And then if they are gonna go to college, the college has to accept like what they're taking. So it's a huge thing to like shift, but in those the years 2 and 3, or like 2 when you're developing it, I just would love if we would continue on the track. I know that's, we're going in the way of pathways, but if there's a way to, I don't know, break away from some of the mold and make it more individualized into pathways. And I don't have the solution for it, so it's like, you know, it's annoying to like say, we should do this, but not have.
at all.
But just like, you know, instead of taking like some of the options, it'd just be awesome if we could broaden it and tailor it more, which I know, I feel like we're getting that way, but I feel like those would be the steps where we would take the time, the supervisors would take the time to kind of look at that and really try to tailor it, like, hey, what are some of the buckets we have? That's all.
Yes,
That's a
so what
comment,
I'm
not
hearing you
necessarily-
say is you like the framework of what we have here, but perhaps in the year of, actually maybe year of awareness in the first year, into the year of development, could there be an opportunity for a bullet that says to explore pathways
Yeah.
to be, you know, broad and diverse for all learners? I don't think that there would be an opportunity not to put something like that in there, as this is just a draft, and all you're asking for is for us to look at what's there, but how creative can we be for all students? I hear that.
And maybe it would be looking at our graduation requirements, which I know we've talked to death through my tenure, and I don't want to put that on other people, but just that it's nice because it's always on the table.
Sure.
Like of what, so awesome.
I will certainly put that down. Write that down, my friend. Thank you. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments, Mr. Wurs?
So what happens if we don't need to do it in 5 years? I mean, sometimes it could last longer. I mean, does that mess up your schedule?
No,
or-
not at all. It's an excellent question. So I actually went through this in my previous district where we went through the entire year of awareness and development through our math program. We brought in several different vendors. At New Hope Soulbury, we used everyday mathematics from K to 5. And we brought in all kinds of different vendors to say, is this still the best program? Do we need to do anything else? At the end of the day, we felt that that program was still serving us exactly as we needed to. So we didn't need pilots, we didn't need proposals, we simply needed to sign off on a curriculum renewal. So that still could mean that we need to re-up something that would be a cost to the district, but that cost would come regardless. What you would potentially save money on if we stuck with a current program would be, you don't need to do the pilots, you don't need to necessarily purchase all new equipment to go with a new proposal. So your question's a good one. If what we have is serving and our data speaks to that, we would simply renew. Please.
The typical cycle that you go through in education, it's a 5-year cycle. Most of our contracts with vendors are around a 5-year cycle, because by that time, if you have materials, books in a secondary, they get really beat up at the end of that 5-year time. But the thought process that Dr. Bloom has here, that's the critical part of it. It's less the resource materials, like the purchasing, than it is the thought of, we should be reviewing this material at that cycle.
No question, it's a good idea. It needs to follow that.
Thank you, I appreciate
Yeah,
that.
I fully support that.
Thank you.
So my question is around, and I agree, having a structure is important to kind of know what you're gonna go do. So how do we marry this with, so like RELA is a year 1, right, 2026, so next year?
Could be.
Remember, that's just a sample.
Okay, so we heard updates in May at the end of the last school year, which we were not here then, but, you know, we're talking about review current impact of existing program through student data. Is it a full year of like, so for RELA, are we looking at all grade levels? Is it a full year before we hear anything back on, I forget, foundations, is that what it is? That's in the 2nd and 3rd grade and it's still working beautifully. We're seeing literacy rates go up, you know, proficiency and like, how do we?
Yep. Great question.
marry all that together?
So I'm going to attack it in a couple different parts, okay? So your first question in terms of like, what could this look like? That is the work that myself and the supervisors and the instructional leaders of the building, in my opinion, need to do between now. I don't know if it will take a full year, but we do need some time to come together to determine what does this sample actually look like in real life. So that's the first piece. The first thing I wanted to do is make sure I got it in front of you to see if you were on board with the renewal cycle. Now the work becomes, so who's on first? Who goes first in the year of awareness? Who moves on? Once we get that determined, we do not need to wait a year to give you updates on the effectiveness of programs because we do have the data that we're going through now. What we'd be establishing is how we will continue to keep that coming to you as the years go on. So you wouldn't, if somebody was in the year of awareness, not hear anything about math. Student data reports and updates to the board on the effectiveness of our district and its programs will always come to you. This is mostly about how we go about renewing the curriculum or revising it if we need to do so in a certain amount of time. You're actually going to have a foundations presentation that was asked from the board in the June meeting. So you had a June 3rd meeting. I was here for that. There were beautiful presentations, and I went back and we heard the fact that you were looking for a little more metrics around the implementation of foundations. Ms. Burke is actually here tonight with that information. So I want you to know that we heard you. We have all the respect in the world for what has been, and now we just want to continue to build upon what could be, which is why we'll continue with those metric presentations as the year goes on, regardless of where we fall in the curriculum cycle. This is purely about renewal, revision, or a new proposal for a curriculum.
Okay.
But it should not preclude you as board members or you as the community from getting an update and understanding as to how your students are performing here. Okay? Yes?
So I have a question.
Please.
Following up with what Christine said. So if we're just looking at the sample.
Yes.
Step 3, if we do REALA, there's a possibility at step 3 that we would need something new in REALA for elementary, middle, and high school, as there is a possibility that we may not just need for middle school or may not need at all. Is that accurate?
That is accurate.
Okay.
So it also will determine, and I've seen it done two ways. It's why I want some time to work with the supervisors and the principals. I have seen it where you put all of RELA into one cycle, like they would be here in this sample. I've seen it where they've split it, where they've done K to 8 in one cycle and they've done 9 to 12 somewhere else, because 9 to 12 also often has to also do with the program of studies as well. So it just takes some time to figure out what Penn Ridge is going to do with that. And I felt like it would be preemptive of me tonight to make that decision without involving a committee and a team of people. So again, this would just be a sample, but yes, we would then determine from each of those grade bands what we would need. And some may need nothing and others may need more.
I appreciate that, and I really appreciate the work that you put into this. I really like the review cycle, so thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just a reminder, one of the critical things here is about our human capital. Our elementary teachers, they're getting a new something every year.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be social studies one year, RELA the next, then it's math. I mean, this has to be done in a thoughtful way so that we're not overloading them with new things and they can actually teach.
Right.
And that's our goal here, as much for them as it is for the community, for everyone, to make sure that we're being really systematic in how we work this. I will tell you that currently what Penn Ridge has is what we've called in the past a program improvement proposal. My hope, actually, my goal for the next time I come to you, which will be in October, is to break that apart a bit. And let me explain why. To me, the idea of a program improvement can be just a bit vague. An improvement might be a renewal, an improvement could be a revision, improvement could be a whole new course, it could be one book. What I would like to propose, and what I've begun working on behind the scenes, is the idea of splitting this into 3 different processes. A curriculum proposal, meaning it would be for something brand new that we haven't done before, and this would fall in our curriculum renewal cycle. a curriculum revision, which would also typically fall in the curriculum renewal cycle, but it might be this textbook is no longer being published, so we have to revise to pick up the newest edition. That should be a different process than a complete brand-new proposal, which might include a pilot and things of that nature. And then a renewal will often come to me where it will say, we just need to re-up our everyday math books. We need a new contract signed. I believe that as transparency between administration and the board, you should see all of those, but I want to make them very clear, separate processes so you understand what it is that you're committing to. And right now, to no fault of anyone, when they all fall under program improvement, it's a little tough to parcel out exactly what it is that we're presenting to you and what you may be signing. So we want to make sure that we present you 3 different processes at the October meeting. I promise to have them done by then. I have a draft, and I know I've sent them to Dr. Barrios and Dr. Palmer, but I would like to get my supervisor's eyes on them, principal's eyes on them, and I just want a little bit more time with that. But that's my hope, is to bring that to you in October. Again, it's not a large change, but it is going to make a difference so that you can distinctly see the difference between brand new, we need to make a revision because of X, Y, or Z, and everything is good, and we just need your signature on a renewal. Questions on that? I promise to bring it to you in October. Okay. The next piece of our presentation is going to come from Ms. Meg Burke. Ms. Burke is our new RELA supervisor, Reading and Language Arts supervisor, and this is in direct result to the ask of the board from the June meeting for some additional updates regarding foundations.
Thank you. Great. Hi, everyone. It is so nice to be here. I'm humbled and honored to be part of the Penridge School District and to serve this community. It is my 32nd day here, and on day 1, Dr. Barrios asked me, so why Penridge? And I said, because of the people. And on Friday, he asked me, which would have been day 31, he asked me, so why Penridge? And I said, because of the people. And so I want to honor the work that was done before I got here, and then I want to bring some new thinking to it around data. So I would like to present to you today some really strategic updates on what was happening over the last 2 years into our 3rd year of K-2 foundations in our elementary schools, the people behind that work, what their goals were, what the data shows, and then, of course, what we're doing moving forward. Sound good? Okay, can you hear me okay? Sometimes I talk fast. So I like to use this model to really talk about using data to inform all instruction, not just a program. And so for this specific group of students that I'm going to point out, I actually pulled together a cohort of 2nd graders. So I pulled a group of 2nd graders who had never had any specific foundations at all. They had core programming that was in Tier 1. Then I pulled a group of 2nd graders who were in 2nd grade with just 1 year of foundations. And then I pulled 2nd graders from last year who are now our 3rd grade students, who actually are the only group that had it for all 3 years. So when I show you this stoplight, I want you to think of the red as an urgent intervention. This is something that tells the teacher, whoa, slow down. The student is significantly reading below grade level expectations and needs intensive and personalized support. The yellow is a student who is below expectations. This is a student who needs additional instructional support. The blue is on watch, and this is a student who is close to benchmark, but just may need targeted support to stay on track. When you put the yellow and blue together, you get green light go, which means they're at or above benchmark and they're on track for grade level reading success and beyond. And I use this measure because I wanted to compare it to what students did with foundations, because we know foundations is a program of explicit phonics instruction. So I don't want to repeat this, but I just want to call out the purpose of a connection I'm about to make between 2 data points. So the STAR benchmark assessment I took at the end of the year, and I'm comparing it to that subgroup of 2nd grade students I talked about. So one of the things I want to think around is the purpose of this connection. So we know foundations provide systematic, explicit instruction in foundational reading skills, which is phonemic awareness, phonics, high-frequency words, fluency, and spelling. The STAR assessment, which we also give in math, really is an early literacy measure that measures student progress in these domains. So the red, the yellow, the blue, the green. And when we look at the end of year STAR data, after a full year of instruction, alongside Foundation's implementation, it's going to help us determine the program's actual impact on literacy growth in K-3. So again, the end of year data review and the data I'm about to show is we're really looking for these growth trends. Did the program do what we wanted it to do? Did it move students from urgent intervention to intervention? Did it move students from intervention to on watch? Did it move them for at or above benchmark after a full year of Foundation's implementation? And then what was its longitudinal impact? So I really needed to monitor this through a cohort of students across 3 years to determine whether Foundation's mastery in K-2 really translates into stronger STAR performance in grades 3 and above. So here is the data over 3 years' time. In year 1, in 2022-2023, these were our second graders who were receiving core instruction without Foundations. In year 2, 2023 to 2024, these were our second graders who had had just 1 year of Foundations. And in year 3, these are our current third graders who are our second graders last year who received Foundations instruction for 3 years' time. Did we hit our margins? And if you look at this data, it tells us that we cut our urgent intervention kids in half from 8 to 4%. Intervention from 8 to 10, on watch from 8 to 10, and at or above from 77% to 76%. Now you could say that number went down, and I could say it was because a student moved. I know. So
Do I have a question?
ultimately, the data for the 2024 to 2025 school year really represents the work that was done that you all supported in this room. The community, the administrators, the teachers, and the school board, and the percentage of students in the lowest performing category. I just heard someone say, you know, what about all kids when we talk about pathways to graduation? What are we doing? What can we do better? We're teaching kids to read. And when you learn how to read, you get to read to learn, to figure out who you want to become. And we took a group of students, and it worked for our most struggling from 8 to 4. That is something to celebrate. It really is. It's incredible. And not only that, it's full.
Yeah, I had a
oh,
question.
Sure.
I looked at this data before, and it didn't jump out at me as a big improvement, because the other ones, well, intervention and on watch went up, and at or above stayed flat. So I didn't quite see as big a jump. I mean, maybe some of those 4% moved up into the other range. So I'm not as enthusiastic about
I know,
it.
and I wasn't either until I asked some questions about that second year cohort. It stayed the same, 8 to 8, right? And 8 to 8, 8 to 8, and 77 to 76. So I actually went into classrooms before I presented here tonight to see the explicit instruction on one day of Foundations, to see what was happening in our classrooms, to see what was going on with this intentional instruction in 6 classrooms in grades 1 and 2. And then I spoke with our reading specialists, our principals, the ones that were doing the work, right? And one of the things they said is, we weren't sure what was going to happen in that first year. We knew what margins we wanted to hit. We didn't want things to go down. We wanted them to go up. We wanted to see if we were growing kids. And in that first year, we only had 4 trained reading specialists doing this work, which is pretty remarkable in our buildings. And by year 3, we had built this efficacy from within, this job-embedded professional growth in Foundations and in our phonics instruction. And I'm careful to use the word effective because I agree with you. You know, it's great, but what happens next? And why isn't it more? And why didn't we see more of an increase? And this is where we're really going to start to look at programming as a whole, because phonics is just a piece of Tier 1 instruction. So where can we really strengthen that and not just focus on one thing? Because one thing won't work over time. And so I agree with you. It gives us a starting point, especially someone coming in and asking those curious questions and getting in those classrooms and knowing that this is just one piece of our curriculum framework.
I agree. I mean, you'll learn more after they've used it a few more years. So
Yeah.
I hope you're right on that.
I do
Yeah.
too, and I think that's why it's super important that we progress monitor and we benchmark, not just one data point. If we're just going to look at Foundations, we're going to keep seeing this. And we need multiple data points. And so that talks to my next slide, so I'm really happy you asked that question. Sure.
The
that's always the hard part for me with looking at data, because when you do the progress monitor training, you usually like are looking at, your fall, your winter, and your spring. So sometimes I always find like sometimes the fall, like kids come in, it's their first year and then they're doing the thing, and then sometimes winter, it's like, oh, we're testing again. So sometimes it is really hard to see the progression based upon the points, because it could just be, it's on the computer if I'm clicking, or, so even, it's a hard struggle to see. So sometimes, a lot of times, it's like seeing, like you were saying, going in the classrooms,
Yeah.
and we don't always get to see that picture of things. But I was always very excited when Penn was bringing back the foundations and focusing on that, because I do feel like that's a huge piece of, in the younger years, of the kids learning to read. But I know the struggle's hard because it's those data points, so you don't see the whole picture. So I agree, sometimes when paper doesn't look good, and maybe it's not. So you have to find something to base it off of. I get that.
And what do we do when the program isn't showing us the results? We strengthen core, because this is one piece.
Right.
It's not the entire curriculum. Do we renew it? Do we revise it? Do we get curious? Do we explore? Do we pilot something? Because our students are changing. Pennsylvania is the biggest small-town state in the entire U.S. And so we look at our students in our classroom today. They weren't here during these cohorts. And how are we moving and adjusting, which is what that curriculum renewal cycle that Dr. Bloom mentioned is really powerful, because this is just one piece of a really big story. And how do we keep doing what works? And how do we really hone into what's not working, because we're not seeing it in student growth? Notice I don't say the word proficiency often, and I want to say that ahead of time, because the next slide, I'm really curious where we're going next. Our second graders.
I'd like to point out is to remember that when we are seeing those students who are moving up out of that 4% number, that means those students are making more than a year's worth of growth. So that's a big lift. It's often hard to move our extremes. So each one of those students that moved out of that urgent category, that means that year they've had to make more than 1 year's worth of growth in terms of their improvement as compared to what we would expect of any other child in that classroom.
And that's why you star, because it shows that in a full year. So I appreciate that layer. Thank you. Any other questions, curiosities? I do want to make this comparison. I did want to see what was happening, not just here, but in 2023, 2024, in second grade, I showed you that end of year star benchmark where students are making these yearly gains, which are pretty impressive. But what were third grade students doing that year who never had foundations? What was our core tier programming doing? And I pulled this to show this, and I'm careful with proficiency because I think sometimes in state testing we swim in a sea of proficiency, so I really am careful with that word. But one of the things I noticed is that students were really at 73.2% when we measure reading comprehension and analysis of text and vocabulary. We shift kids from learning to read to reading to learn. And can they do that independently as third graders? And some of that is pretty complex. And our goal with this, if we're really comparing the data that happened in foundations, my goal is really starting to look at, can we shift this paradigm where we continue to increase students that are advanced? Can we really continue to reduce the number of below basic students and the number of below basic and basic combined? Can this color-coded pie chart really become a split between proficient and advanced if we continue this work and beyond? And again, this was just my thinking around what's happening with peers that are now taking this assessment 2 years ago compared to now. And what does that look like? What does growth look like, and how do we measure it? The points that you're going to see on the left-hand side with STAR, that's the determination of where students land when they take it. And so you'll see that they're color-coded again, like the traffic light that I showed you, the red, the yellow, that vague 20 to 29 is kids kind of on bubble, and then the blue and the green.
Proficient? Shouldn't
Yes.
that be a larger?
Yep. And
The green is the smaller one?
the green is the smaller.
So what-
The colors on the left don't match the colors.
They don't, okay. Yeah, they're not supposed to? or-
Well, they kind of do, actually, because if you think of red below basic, that is urgent. If you think of yellow in state reading comprehension, that is basic. If you think of blue, blue and green together, because it's a pretty big margin, The thing I want to point out is that 2.7% advanced. I think we can do better with some of our advanced kids with really pushing them beyond the programming that we're giving them now. And how do we do that? How do we engage students? How do we give them more of those opportunities? And that becomes part of the curriculum. And so I chose these 2 data points to show the growth of what was happening and where I think we can go. Did you have questions about this one? So what does it look like this year? Well, all of this work was done by 4 Wilson-trained reading specialists that were supporting K-2 teachers. This year, they'll continue to do this on a 2-day cycle in every single one of our elementary schools. The goal is to strengthen teacher practice through embedded professional development, to track student achievement and growth using STAR and benchmarks given in the fall, winter, and spring, and the Grade 3 ELA PSSA. Monitoring student movement across benchmark levels from urgent to intervention and on watch, or at or above benchmark, and then the long-term impact of K-2 Foundation's mastery on later STAR PSSA performance in Grade 3 and above. I point this out because it's people over programs, and we have 433 students in that cohort with 7 instructional coaches, 10 reading specialists, and 55 teachers. And I think that's really impressive, and it speaks to where teachers' hearts are and what drives them to continue to do this work.
Does that mean that these students are going to be flagged so that as they get older, we'll know they were in foundations?
It's interesting you ask that question because with foundations, it's those foundational skills, the decodables, the getting them to access text. But in 3rd grade, what we're asking kids to do with that eligible content standards is to read, write, and think critically about complex text independent of a teacher on their own and do it in writing. And so what I'm trying to match this year, and I'm really curious about, and I'll continue to give you updates on, is where are those transferable skills? Where is that common language being used in Grade 2 that we see in Grade 3? Where's that vertical alignment and articulation? How do we make this language native to teachers' tongues beyond foundations in Grades 3 through 12?
Okay, so for example, in grade 6, those students that were in this cohort, we're going to know that they were in that cohort and try to assess or track if there was a connection to long-term improvement.
Yes, and that's why I go to that traffic light. When are we using formative assessment checks and common assessments to do this? Not at the end, it's post-mortem. But when do we do this every step of the way? So when we stop and look at data as a team, we say, wait a minute, what are the patterns and trends we're seeing and why? What are the root causes? What can we do right now and not run what I call triage? Sometimes in education, we start running triage. You know, emergency becomes urgency pretty quick. And in literacy, if we're really, really strategic, we can start to see this grow, not just in RELA, but in other content areas.
Okay.
I have one more question on the second, track student achievement, growth. So you're going to present spring, fall data. Or how do you
Happily.
compare? How do you compare that, or what do you compare it to see if we're doing well?
So the assessment window's just opened in K-5 for us to start seeing where students are. I say they're still learning to do school. So I'm always hesitant to say, can we let kids learn how to adjust to school first before we start assessing them, especially our youngest learners. Also with kindergarten being full day, we're going to really start to look at those instructional minutes. But what I would like to do is I'd like to use as many data points as I can aligned to literacy and reading, and compare those to how students are doing in the upcoming grades, if that makes sense.
Are you looking at past performance of kids to see if we're doing better than the year before? Or?
I like the 5-year projections. I think they're really powerful. And so now that we have 3 years of foundations, we're on year 3 now, I can start to make those comparisons in those subgroups.
Yeah, because if kids went through it without that, then we should see some difference over time.
I agree. And maybe there's groups of students that without it are outperforming. Why? And I think we need to make that really explicit in our curriculum. And I think teachers struggle to say explicitly how they did something because they just do it. They're magic. They're like, oh, I just do this thing. Well, no, you do this really amazing thing that's teaching kids how to read, write, and think. And so I have all of those wonderings and questions, which is my excitement to be here and to be curious and to bring that data to you.
Thank you.
Sure. Well, I don't want to leave out middle school, and I don't want to keep talking. I know I'm the sage on the stage right now, but I really want to celebrate something that happened as my last share out, when I got to spend 2 days with grade 6 through 12 teachers. And it was reading teachers, ELA teachers, high school English, AP, journalism, humanities, and they met together for 2 days with me as a department. And I really asked them to reflect on their learning that day. I asked them to identify celebrations and replications in their teaching. I asked them to identify instructional bright spots and instructional shadows. And I asked them to use data to drive that decision of what they picked and why. And 83% of them said to me that they really appreciated the opportunity for collaboration, practical ideas, and feeling supported. One of them said, despite varying grade levels, we were all able to identify areas for improvement. We all realize we have room to grow. And that speaks to the teachers in this district. And that was just on my first 2 days with them. In terms of instructional shifts, 85% said that they want to integrate engagement strategies in their instruction in the classroom. They want to align a common academic language. That was 67% of them. They want to use more low stakes and high yield instructional strategies. That's formative assessment. And 85% of them said that they want to do more of that. I actually modeled an activity called power writing, and they loved it. And that's 6 through 12. And they said, we want to go back and try that. And I call it low stakes, high yield, because you're giving kids that motivation to do things independently on their own without fear of failure. And it's a really great formative shift. Professional learning, ways to enhance and engage all learners at 58%, ways to create relevant and real-world learning experience at 53%, and ways to increase reading stamina and independence at 58%. And so I really applaud the teachers across the district and the community and my department, and of course the board for the support, and I'm happy to see the work ahead of us and to share it with you as it happens. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure. Brilliant.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for having me here. I'm very excited to talk to you about what is going to be a fun-packed year for our science department. We have a lot going on, and I feel like it's just been a really wonderful learning experience that we've had to go through as a department. And I feel like the work that we've started is really continuing and starting to spread through all K-12 grades. So this year you can expect to hear from me regarding the curriculum writing that we've initiated in grades K-5 to make sure that those courses are STEELS aligned. If you remember, I brought some of our conversations from last year's committee regarding STEELS aligned curriculum resources, program resources. We will be continuing that conversation, and you will hear from me again in October with some of the specifics as we reconvene those conversations and make those decisions at the administrative level. Some upcoming data points you can anticipate from elementary school. We have shifted from the CDT to the Linkit benchmark for this year. We're looking to have a consistent point to kind of measure our metrics and see how our students are performing across all of our tested grade levels this year. And that is obviously replacing the CDT. We're shifting to Linkit. So our students will be testing in non-tested grades, fall, winter, and spring. And then in the tested grades, we will use that final assessment for the PSSA as our spring benchmark, and you will also see the fall and the winter. So that's for those tested grade levels, 5, 8, and the Keystone Biology. For middle school, year 2 of Twig Science implementation, we had a great start to the year. We talked a lot about some of our highlights from last year and what we really gained from that first year experience. I remember sharing with you a little bit of our claim evidence reasoning, the growth and the progress that we saw with students in their writing. We are looking to create very consistent practices from grades 6 to 8 to really build that analytical thinking, critical thinking, and evidence-based reasoning in student writing. So you'll see some more from that, and I really hope to share some more student samples with you as the year progresses. Again, upcoming data points you can anticipate. The window has opened, as Ms. Burke mentioned, and we can anticipate that in a future meeting, I will bring all that data to you. For high school, we are in year 2 of block updates. a lot of what we're looking at this year is that STEELS alignment. In particular, we're focusing in on our biology keystone course. We have some curriculum writing going on right now, and I look forward to bringing that to you very soon. Yes.
Just so you know, from the sample curriculum renewal cycle, if you saw in there, it did start with the 26-27 school year, because you already had some projects up and ready for discussion for this school year, including the elementary pilot for a STEM and STEELS aligned curriculum. So we will still bring those to you this year outside of the new renewal cycle, because if not, we'd be ending the work you've been doing, and we don't want to do that. Just know that after this year, we would get on to that cycle, if that makes sense. So it's a pretty fair bet that science then wouldn't come again next year, since we're going to get it going this year. Thanks, Christine.
Thank you, Dr. Bloom.
No problem.
So at the end of last year, I did share with you that the PSSA assessment in science was administered as a field assessment, and this was really to just for the state to share those STEELS aligned sample questions and to start to gauge how students will perform. So I did want to share the percentile ranges here. I feel these are the grade 5 percentages that we're looking at, and this is obviously the percentage that our students performed in comparison to other students in Pennsylvania. And then here we have our grade 8 data. I'm just moving forward because I do have a comparative chart that I feel like is a good reference point for us. So we can look at the 24-25 state testing, grades 5 and grade 8. These were the field test assessments that were given to start to align to STEELS-based questions. You can see in this chart, we also have our 23-24 year PSSA assessment data, where we saw in grade 4, 91% of our students tested as proficient or above, and in grade 8, we saw 80% of students performing proficient and above. So I just wanted to highlight this because I did want to share with you what were the results of our field tests, but I want to just also draw attention to the fact that these were not these are not being used as an evaluative tool. These were purely for the Pennsylvania Department of Education to really administer a field assessment to start to test those questions. So we're going to see the alignment to the STEELS standards in our 25-26 PSSA assessment. So we are anticipating spring assessments to be administered as a normal PSSA, and we'll get those standards-based results from that. And I look forward to that opportunity because that will really be the first data point that our teachers have to really dig in and analyze. One of the reasons why we shifted to link it is because we are looking for those metrics throughout the year to really help us to evaluate how well our curriculum and our resources are aligning to the STEELS standards. I think that our teachers are very excited to have that data, and I look forward to bringing it to you throughout the year.
Note to that slide so that somebody in the public looks at that doesn't think that our scores dropped tremendously.
Certainly, I can make that very apparent.
There's a reason, there's a good reason.
Yes, absolutely. I think I have it over in the left column, but I agree with you. I can make it more. I can make it more clear. I agree. Thank you. And then we did see a 2% increase in our biology keystones overall. So from the 24-25 science data, we took some key takeaways from that information, really looking at integrating the Pennsylvania STEELS standards and aligning the strategies. We saw a lot of value in bringing the claim evidence reasoning writing strategy to our students at the middle school level. So we had a wonderful meeting at the beginning of this year in August with our elementary school teachers as well, and we brought this idea of expanding on student discourse. I think it's always been very apparent as I've visited elementary school classrooms that the students are engaged in science. They are actively learning. There is inquiry-based experiences happening there, and I feel like that's a very much a strong suit of our curriculum. What we've talked about for this year is to really expand and emphasize peer-to-peer conversation, that student discourse that allows students to then take what they're seeing and then in their own words, describe what they're learning and how this connects to other scientific concepts. So we will be making sure that we embed those skills-based strategies and emphasize that in our curriculum this year. We're kicking off on October 3rd with another conversation about claim evidence reasoning and how we're going to see that in some of our lower grades. Again, this will be an introduction of that process, kind of building that strategy from our youngest learners to our middle school students who are in year 2, our 7th and 8th graders, of really writing like that. And then we're looking at middle school to really focus on that, creating that consistency and the utilization and the scoring. We've talked a lot about how this impacts all of our students and making sure that the expectations are clear and that our teachers are grading that consistently, so that you'll see more from me on that. And looking at our biology course, our Keystone Biology course, again, I mentioned we're beginning and kind of refining some of our curriculum writing there. We are going to be introducing some formal claim evidence reasoning writing responses in there. You'll note that our incoming freshmen have also had experience with claim evidence reasoning, so we're going to want to keep that as a part of our curriculum and build upon that for the future. Does anyone have any questions? Thank you so much.
Good evening. Thank you for having me tonight. I'm Jenna Vitale, the Social Studies and ELD Supervisor, K through 12. So I don't have the privilege of having the data that the other 3 subjects have. So I'm going to do my best to give you the data that we do have, and and let you know that we have started moving toward keeping data, even though it's not overt and we don't have a specific social studies test. But I'm just going to give you some updates. As you know, last year we implemented the first year of our new SAVIS Social Studies resource in elementary school. So this is year 2 implementation. And I can tell you that as we're moving into the 3rd week of school now, it's much smoother. And I spoke with teachers, and they're feeling much more comfortable about the assessments this year. We did a lot of work last year to make sure that there were modifications and the tests were adapted to all of our learners. And so that is there for them. And we did learn a lot in that process. Including visual literacy and the need to do some professional learning around visual literacy and what that looks like. I did a little presentation for the board last year in May, I believe it was, just to give some samples of the kinds of visual questions that the students were getting on assessments. So we did a fun training on August 21st for elementary with around visual literacy, and so we did an hour of some sampling and really having a conversation around what it looks like to engage our students, not just in paintings and pictures, but all kinds of visual literacy from maps to bar graphs and what that looks like in the social studies classroom. So that was elementary. And year 2 of middle school is our text-dependent analysis. So we don't have a test for social studies in middle school, but what we do have is the RELA eligible content, which is, and I always say, teach social studies the way you would teach English. And I say that to my elementary teachers because they can bring in elements of and strategies and best practices that they use in RELA in social studies in order to engage the students. So we carry that into the middle school with writing. And text-dependent analysis has been something that the students are learning from 3rd grade in RELA, but we don't do it as much in the other courses and the other content areas, except now in social studies, 6 through 8. We developed 3 different TDA questions, one in the beginning of the year, middle of the year, and the end of the year. Not necessarily a benchmark at the beginning of the year, it was just the first TDA. So they read an article, it's a cold read, they have never seen the article before, and then they get a question, they have to answer that question in writing. And we hand graded them. We use a rubric. We came up with a rubric together, all of the teachers. It was part of some of our professional learning. And we even graded them together to kind of get to know. how this operates and how this works, because some of the social studies teachers in the middle school were not used to grading written work the way that maybe our RELA teachers are. So a lot of principals helped, coaches helped. And then this year, we're moving to the next step, which is phase 2 of text-dependent analysis, putting the grades in to link it. And here's where we can really start to use those data points. So my vision is to pick out and do a crosswalk of the eligible content in RELA, match it with our rubric in social studies, and keep the data that way. So it's not, it's not a bullseye. We're not exactly testing what we would see maybe in RELA, but it's as close as we can get. And it'll give us really good teaching points so that we can go back into the classroom and do those formative assessments to help the students not only engage with the text, but engage with their writing and learn from what they're reading, and then be able to speak to that in their writing. So we're excited to start that. And in high school, it's year 2 of block scheduling, so kind of getting used to the pacing, and some of our teachers have been teaching for a long time, and making that shift to block was a little bit like, just kind of receiving some new information and how do we move forward, and we're doing a beautiful job, and there has been no concern. So my teachers are really excited to move on to year 2 of block scheduling. We also incorporated visual literacy at the high school level as well. I did the same activities with the high school that I did with elementary, and the coaches and I are working toward giving the same protocols that we used in elementary with the high school, because it's the same thing, just a little bit different ask on the back end. We're also incorporating small group instruction. A lot of social studies teachers in the past have used small group instruction or station work. Now we're honing it a little bit more. Last year we did some tag outs at the elementary school. We took some social studies teacher from the high school and went to elementary. And this year we're going to do the reverse. We're going to bring some elementary students or teachers up to the high school and do that sharing of information and collegial interplay. And it really was a lot of fun, so I'm looking forward to that as well. Looking forward. So like I said, there's not a whole lot of data, but we are doing those crosswalks with RELA. And I think that's a very important point for the trajectory of social studies content and skills that we're asking the students to do really requires them to use their RELA skills. So making that crosswalk and using that increased literacy, not just reading, writing, speaking, and listening, but also that visual piece as well in social studies. Same with middle school, we're doing that crosswalk. Teachers have done it. We spent the first professional development day looking at the RELA eligible content and how we can connect it to our TDAs. And then not the next time I meet with them, but the second to next time I meet with them, we're going to be putting our first data points into Linkit.
Is that just for middle school though? Because I love that you guys are going to use and put it into Linkit, but is there anything to be put into Linkit for the elementary and the high school?
Not quite yet, because they assess, they don't do common assessments necessarily in every single course in the high school. Some of them do, but not all of them do, and that is something that we're working toward. That's on our radar, that we are going to talk to the high school team about common assessments, final exams, those sorts of things. So right now, to your point, the best place to do that and to start was with middle school, since text-dependent analysis was new. So I think what we learn from this is what we can then take for elementary and secondary social or high school social studies. Yeah, so you're right. It's just Linkit for now in middle school.
Assessments, I think the shift is going to be to move in that direction. We do have a subscription to Linkit Prime, which they'll actually transfer those directly in for us. As long as you have the blueprinting along with the assessment you want to give, they can put anything in there. There's some schools, when I was at Abington, every assessment, like at elementary level, math and RELA, all given that same way.
Yeah. good question. All right, so some data, I do have some data, and it's AP data. AP data for social studies, and I can't speak to any of the other content areas, but in particular, our social studies data is always so great with the test results. What I want to point out to you is AP Human Geography. It was the first year, as you remember, we just brought that course to the high school. We have 2 rockstar teachers that are teaching it, and we had 93 kids, I think, take that course last year. It was the very first year. They drummed up so much excitement to take that course, and look at their scores. They blew it out of the water. So I'm really proud of that. And I obviously had nothing to do with it, but they did a really nice job. I really didn't, but I went into their classrooms, and it's a really cool class. So I'm really excited that we brought it here. And the rest of our data, I mean, if you look at, this is over 5 years, AP Euro, 3s, 4s, and 5s, and then AP Psych, bottom left, AP US, United States Government and Politics on the bottom right, and then we have AP US History, also known as APUSH, and AP World. Any questions about those?
Just on if you could break out the mean score, it's between 0 and 5, I think, right? It's hard to see.
Yes, because the
Exactly, on some-
scores are between
Like, is it-
0 and 5.
Yeah,
Well, 1
if you
and
could
5.
break that out on a different graph or somehow show it so it jumps out at you a little more, because it's really hard to read.
Would numbers be better because they're so close, like
The scale is off for that one, I don't know.
Okay.
If, I'd like to make a couple comments. Thank you. I'm sorry, Ms. Sharina, did I interrupt? Sorry. I just want to add a couple of points. So for the AP Human Geography, this was a course that 9th graders could take. And we're going to definitely explore other opportunities for 9th graders to take and 10th graders to take advanced placement coursework. But I couldn't be prouder of these 9th graders that Ms. Sharina, Mr. Words, and I had an opportunity to go visit this AP Human Geography class, and it's just fantastic, and we commend the teacher. It also bears noting that during the November curriculum meeting, we will have a deep dive into our student achievement data. So, Mr. Words, to your point, we will have the entire battery of advanced placement exams and our PSSA exams, and there will be a lot of metrics that night, so get ready. Keystone exams, NOCTI results that we will review at the November curriculum meeting. So this is just a snapshot because social studies is not a tested subject other than our end of the year civics exam, which we do extremely well on. So thank you.
You're very welcome.
Can you go back and check? Some of them dropped in number of exams. I guess we'll see. You're going to show us all the AP. Because our number of exams went up. Obviously, a lot of it had to do with
The only class that I did write those down in anticipation of the question. So in AP World, 90% of the students that took the course took the exam. In AP Psych, it did drop a little bit. 78% of the students took the exam. AP US History, 89% of the students took the exam. Government, 53% took the exam. So I think that's the one you're seeing that went down.
it says total exams, so that doesn't include enrollment. It just shows how many people took the exam, so
Yeah.
a lot less
Yeah,
in some of them.
yeah.
What we're trying to get everybody to take the test is,
Yeah, we would like that.
yeah.
But for the most part, with the exception of those 2 courses, over 80% of the students are taking the exam.
80%?
Yeah. And ELD updates. Okay, so English language development was slated, the way we used to run our program was that we were clustered. And all of the elementary students went to Guth, all of the middle school students went to North, and then they all fed to the high school. Last year, we started a 2-phase move from the clustering model back to homeschools. So last year, we only sent our students that were level 3 and above back to their homeschools. This year, we're sending all of them back. So this is year one of full integration of all of the levels back at their home schools. I don't have any information. It's the second week of school. I don't have any data points or anything like that quite yet, but we will get them. By the end of the year, we will be tracking that, and we would love to see and be able to give information that this move back to their home schools not only was beneficial for the students educationally, but also socially and emotionally as well. And we're embarking on a Magic School training, which is a product that will help us to differentiate for students. And teachers are really looking for things to specify what each student needs, because we have upwards of 40 languages here at Penridge. So what one student needs in a class that might be a level 1 learner in one language, there might be another student that's a totally different language and a level 2 learner in that same classroom. So Magic School will help teachers to take the topic that they're teaching and make it usable and friendly for that student to understand.
Of students in this category?
ELD students,
Yeah.
we have about 300, give or take, in the whole district. Yeah.
Oh, I think it's great you guys are doing Magic School training. I want to come to it as well.
Magic School's amazing.
Because I guess this we used to do that at the IU.
At the IU, yeah.
Yeah, so it's awesome. I feel like, you just need somebody to be like, you click here, this is what you do, and then it can be so much better for the teacher as well as the student. So that's great that you guys are going to be having that.
Yeah, I'm excited about that as well. And lots of professional learning planned with coaches. We meet weekly with the ELD teachers from K through 12, with myself, Carly Baker, who's the coordinator for the school district, and with some coaches as well. We talk about what teachers need in particular, because the ELD teachers push into the classroom. And so they're there to support the learning that's going on in the general ed classroom, and really to support the teachers too. So they co-plan with the teachers when they get a chance to. They collaborate with the teachers more often than co-planning because of scheduling and other things that get in the way during the day. But we do our best to work as a team so that we're communicating K through 12, and when one of us can't get there, someone else can step in for that. We had a really nice event last week too for our families. We do family engagement. So we decided to do it this year at the beginning of the year instead of the end of the year, so that we could help if they needed to fill out any of the forms for registration paperwork, getting onto Power School, getting onto Canvas. We had them sign up for free and reduced lunch, all of the paperwork that maybe sometimes is a little bit more difficult to fill out. So we did that with them. It was a really great event. And same thing with middle school. The students are going back to their home schools for the first year, second year, with Talking Points as well. Talking Points is, I skipped that for elementary. But Talking Points is a two-way communication tool. We can text with parents, we can call with parents, and it automatically translates into any language. So we're working with parents and teachers with that as well. Also, all of the secretaries have been trained. Everyone in the building, every touch point from the cafeteria to the front office to the classrooms have been trained in Talking Points. And it's the same for the high school as well. I did forget to mention in social studies that we're working on several things to celebrate the 250th anniversary of our country. So we have several pots on the burners, and we will be giving you updates for that as well.
Cool.
Yeah. Any other questions? Because I think math is up. Thank you. Okay. Thank you.
Good evening, Mike Garish, Math Supervisor. I have one slide for us, so I will be as brief as I can. So in elementary school, we're up and running. We had some supply chain possible disasters, but everything worked out perfectly. A big shout out to one of our instructional coaches, Dana Pivnichny, who worked really hard getting everything set up and all our teachers in the system ready to go. We spent a lot of time there in those first couple of days. Working with the teachers, making sure they were all set up, but also taking a look at their STAR data and finding some areas that we wanted to focus in at different grade levels. Whether that be geometry and measurement and data were two areas, and it depended on what grade. Some grades it was very high, some it was very low. So we had some fantastic conversations about that. Also, we looked at the first couple of units, and they thought that there was some changes they could make in some scope and sequence. So those were some really good discussions. The first data point we'll be collecting, and it's already been mentioned, about our STAR assessments, which is part of the Renaissance platform. So we'll give our fall one is happening right now. We also give a winter and a spring as well. And not only do we take a look at those data points when they come in, also to know that those assessments are tied to another product we have, Freckle. And Freckle actually then takes that information on how that student did and then can customize the program and knows what that student needs to work on. So that's utilized in a lot of the small group instruction. You go to an elementary school and you see them working in small groups, that they can be working in Freckle, and that's directly tied to those assessments. So not only do those assessments give us information as a whole on what we can work on, but that really helps direct a student in what they need to work on.
Freckles use just elementary,
Yes.
K through 5, and then I do like that. I remember when that got rolled out. I think that's great. IXL is in like another one, but does elementary just use the Freckle, which is fine because it's a lot of programs. And then is IXL utilized more in like the middle school?
Yes,
because
so
it's tailored?
in the elementary school, we have Freckle, which is tied to STAR. We've also had Study Island in the past. This year, we'll continue in the elementary school. Dr. Bloom was in on a call with me the other day to really look at how we're using Study Island. It's not something that's just, and Meg was in with it as well, not something that's just used for teachers for skill practice, but to really develop a program on how we're collecting data and how we're going to use that moving forward. So we have another meeting, October 3rd, I think, and then they're going to come out during our harvest sessions to do a number of sessions with us there. So we're excited about that in the elementary school.
Middle school?
IXL is used in 6 through 8, all students, and in 10, 11, RELA, 9 and 10 RELA, and selected math classes
Does
as
it,
well.
because middle school, they take the CDTs. What's the, I can't think of it. What's like the fall, winter, spring?
So our Linkit benchmarks in the middle school?
So it's a Linkit?
Yes.
And does IXL, you know, sometimes they can work with programs and kind of do the same thing that Freckle's doing with STAR? Or is there another program, or is it not like that?
It's not like, doesn't connect directly. Something like Khan Academy and PSATs can attach and do
Yeah.
their work. One thing we have with IXL then ties in with our McGraw-Hill and our
Okay, great,
textbook
like the
series to
curriculum,
do
yeah.
that. So they can have IXL activities that are directly
go with-
related to where they
right.
are.
Okay.
Okay, middle school math. We talked a lot last year about the Math 6 Accelerated class, which is underway. It was very nice to see that come to fruition. I know when I spoke with you last, I had some concerns about the selection process, and we went through and we talked about how we were going to be very objective in taking a look at all those measures and the selection process that went through there. I was just worried about how that would roll out. It's been fantastic. Before schedules went out, some principals had some questions from parents about the whole process. But since then, I've only received one email from a parent who just wanted to make sure they understood how it happened. But for the most part, people have bought into that. I guess the communication went well, so I'm happy about that. I met all of those students on day one, and then I've also been in teaching a lesson. They're starting off the year with prime numbers and factorization, so we did some Python work on writing some code to be able to find prime numbers. My early nominee for highlight of my year has already happened. I was in a 6th grade class, and we were doing, and I was embarrassed. I wasn't going to tell the story because I thought it was going to make me look bad, but I talked to other math teachers, and they're all with me on it, so I will continue. And we're going through, and I had a big number, and I said, is this prime? And does 2 go into it? Does 3? And a girl said, it's prime. And I said, how do you know that? She's like, well, I checked the numbers. And I said, well, how do you know that 7 doesn't go into it? And she just rattled off this rule thing that I've never heard before. And I looked at her teacher, Miss Portelli, and I'm like, is that right? She's like, yes, she taught us that one yesterday. So it was something, and I went down to Mr. Hughes, the principal, who's a math teacher, and did you know there's this rule for 7? He's like, I had no idea, and I got on his whiteboard and showed it. So having those students in that room and what they were doing just on the first day kind of blew me away and got me really excited that these kids were all psyched about that. They all, found something that none of their teachers knew about. So that's a highlight. We'll see if that one holds up. It very well might. So in the middle school, we also we do the Linkit benchmarks. Lincoln benchmark A, and we will do B for the middle school. All students in middle school will take those benchmarks for grade 6, grade 7, grade 8 PSA content, regardless if they're in geometry or algebra. We wanted to make sure that students are in geometry and algebra classes and pre-algebra aren't just so focused on that and don't remember that, yes, we have eligible content for all 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. So for some of them, it's like, oh, we didn't do this yet, and that's because they're probably doing higher math, but they need to be reminded of that. In high school, we're very excited about taking a look at our Keystone data in algebra and looking at our scheduling. In the past, we may have had years where we had 4, maybe 5 different teachers teaching Algebra 1 in our 42-minute schedule all over the place. So Mr. Ketty's not here, but we took a look at that in the schedule, and this year we have all of our students that are taking Algebra 1 at the high school are taken with 1 of 2 teachers. We built the schedule around developing common planning time for those teachers, to build all those assessments and link it, and to really focus in on make sure we have a common ground to meet all of those students' needs. Additionally, with that common planning time, we're also focusing on our remediation for students who weren't proficient on the test, where before that kind of like some of them retook it and we didn't really have a plan. So that's something that they're working on. I have a meeting with Mr. Ketty tomorrow to really put that together, to have students in Algebra 2. And last year I talked about we even have students that get to pre-calculus in the past that didn't pass the Keystone Algebra but still worked their way up. So to use our RAMS time and these teachers developing, they're using a program Delta Math to help as well in that, and to really get it understood that these students, it's important that they pass that, and we're going to provide remediation so that they can retake those. AP Pre-Calculus, we talked about that last year. That's a new course, although we still have to find its home with AP Pre-Calculus and Honors Pre-Calculus. We talked about that last year. We're attempting to get more students to take those opportunities to take an AP class. Yet we have our real high flyer students who wanted to get pre-calculus done in a semester so they can move on with other things. So we still have those two running side by side. So we're going to be taking a real close look at that this fall so we can get things ready for our program of studies come this winter for next year. There has been lots of talk already this evening about assessment alignment. We've had some changes in our high school staffing a bit. So now we have some teachers that maybe are moving, teaching things they hadn't taught before. And it's really been a perfect opportunity for them to realize, oh, if I haven't taught this before, I'm going to work with the other teachers and to get them in the same room and use PLT time to develop common assessments, not just the final exams, but as we go through and they take a look at which units they want to start with, and that really helps them talk with one another, and that articulation is really important. So we're happy about that, and as we talked as well about the prime feature and getting things into Linkit. So we're making strides there. The data point, all students taking Algebra 1, Algebra 1A, and Algebra 1, the academic class, are taking their first set of benchmarks right now. So we'll have that data soon. All right, any questions, concerns? Dr. Bloom?
Nope, it's my fault, not yours. I know this evening's been a bit lengthy in terms of our presentation, and I apologize for that, but I do want to make sure that we got the chance tonight to bring you some of the metrics that you asked for, but also to set you up so you know where we're going this year. I can promise you that you'll see our supervisors again. We don't know to what frequency yet, but we will find out for you because we want to make sure that we're bringing back to you timely updates, and that's something that we'll work on offline at our supervisors meetings so that we're bringing you the updates that you need, but we're also respecting the time of your meeting. Okay. Last two things this evening. We wanted to let you know that we did have additional professional learning time, or PLT, options or examples that will be offered through our Vector online training tonight. So you can see a list of them there. It was just so that you are aware of other ways that we are trying to support the different learners and the educators here at Penn Ridge. finally, Harvest Your Learning is an opportunity coming up for our district again on October 20th at 8 a.m. All board members are invited to attend again, and we thank you for all the support you've given us in past years. We hope that you'll take advantage of joining us again this year for whatever portion of your day you're able to do so. This is an exciting opportunity for the community to be aware of. Although you are not invited, we do want you to be aware of what's going on. This is really what we would call in our lingo, our world, an ed camp or an education camp. This is for Penridge faculty, led by Penridge faculty. It's personalized, it's passion driven. It allows educators who work in this district to be able to get up in front of their peers and say, I want to show you this awesome thing, this awesome opportunity, so you too can try this in your classroom. So it's such an amazing event. So we want to make sure that we are making our community aware and extending the invitation to our board. We are still looking for donations for raffle prizes because if we're going to have a cool event, we want to have some prizes to go with it. So if you have any connections or you're interested in helping us with that, you can certainly reach out to me at jbloom@penridge.org. There are no obsolete books for this month, so that does conclude our presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
So for final public comment, we have, my bad.
I just wanted to thank you for that excellent presentation. It wasn't,
Thank you.
it didn't seem that long. No, it's okay. No, go ahead, sit down. I do appreciate that. I think I've heard the word metrics more than any time I've ever been on the school board, so I hope that's, looking forward to it.
So thank you very much for sharing that.
So for second public comment, we have one person, Dan Biebernitz.
Dan Biebernitz, Hilltown. Thank you. To start, Mr. Wers, your question about how important cutting our Tier 3 population in half. I understand skepticism, and as someone whose entire career has been working inside the Tier 3 program, the amount of need, the amount of work, the amount of challenges for those students cannot be overstated. So tonight I'd like to say thank you. To the people in this room making wise decisions that have clear and data-supported benefits for all of our students, for strengthening the early literacy of our community's children, and reducing the number of students falling behind, for providing effective targeting to keep intervention needs within the MTSS model, for improving our school's reputation by returning us to the top 25% of schools in PA, for increasing AP class and test opportunities for our soon-to-be graduates, for the transparency demonstrated by presenting student progress and outcomes, for the data analysis, the debate, and the decision-making. I am proud and incredibly thankful of how you've improved our children's academic outcomes. To the curriculum supervisors, coordinators, academic coaches, and the specialists in their field, the recently re-empowered to guide teaching strategies that have best possible outcomes for our students. I appreciate your hard work, and I'm thankful for your expertise. Your experience and application are the driving force in our recent academic increases. And lastly, to the teachers, the instructional aides, the one-to-one academic supports, and all the other staff working tirelessly so you can help one classroom, one pull-out group, one individual student master a new concept. Thank you. For my career in public schools, I know that your success is not felt by seeing graphs increase in percentage points, because your focus is on the child. While these data points are to be widely celebrated, and they are, I know that behind these numbers, it means you are seeing more light bulb moments, more ahas, and more successes with the students who matter so much to you. I hope you take this opportunity to feel that success and continue to appreciate those wins as the year goes on. There are so many wins to celebrate. These are a group of leaders improving the outcomes for our children in our community. This is what we should be focused on, academics, and that is what this board, this administration, and these teachers are capable of when they are empowered. It is my hope that the Penridge community and prospective board members take note of the hard work being done. I intend to see our school keep showing off how we can make Penridge proud. Thank you.
Committee meeting. The next curriculum committee meeting will be September 8th. Thank you, and have a lovely evening.